Welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about some of the new features and functionalities in the upcoming release of GVERSE GeoGraphix version 2026.1 Vega, providing smarter geological and geophysical workflows. The agenda for today is as follows. We're going to start by looking at the enhancements made in the block diagram visualization, which includes our new distance annotation, as well as other features that can add geologic context to the block diagram. Then we're going to look at cross-section enhancements made in GVERSE X section, which include unlimited undos and redos across all pick modes. From there, we're going to go into GVERSE petrophysics, where I'll show you the simplified and improved handling of curved data as well as petrophysical data. And lastly, we're going to look at the enhancements made in GVERSE Geophysics to GVERSE attributes. Now we have the ability to visualize, compare, and generate attributes and inversion on 2D data as well as 3D data all on the fly and in real time. Now let's go into the software for the demonstration. Now to show the new enhancements being made in the visual detail for the block diagrams, I'm going to begin here in GVERSE Geo Plus. I'm coming here and use my block diagram tool to call on my first block diagram section to automatically pull in wells and build that block diagram for me. Now I'm going to zoom in an area that I want to analyze the well distribution along with the interaction of the intersecting surfaces in a little more detail. Now in one scenario, I'd be able to gain the desired information by utilizing my absolute and horizontal distance tools to get the well distribution and distances between wells interformationally as well as intraformationally. But what if I wanted to gain more detail, like multiple well distances at once, or distances between wells and formations or other items within my block diagram? This is where our new distance annotation tool comes in. This gives me the ability to measure and communicate different spacings, distances, as well as offsets and depths with any desired item within my X section, within my block diagram cross section. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking a few measurements. I can snap it directly to my well and quickly get multiple well distances all at once. But I can also take that further and get distances between depths to my different formations as well. Now these are fully customizable attribute entities here within my block diagram. So that gives me customization capabilities. I can change my precision if I wanted to change my decimal places to gain a little bit more insight into that area. I can also change my colorings and stylizings of my line color in order to distinguish between other items within my block diagram. So let's go ahead and make this green, change this to 2 and get rid of that. So once I apply, I can see my lines have now changed. And finally, I can customize my fonts in order to view this at different scales. So I go ahead and turn it green so I can distinguish it from my other items here as well. Now, if I wanted to add a clearer view of my well geometries, I can also break down those distances into vertical and horizontal components, allowing me to get a greater detail of those geometries with my intersecting surfaces as well as my wells. Now I do have the new ability to create nearest well reports as well. If I wanted to see this in a tabular format, I can see that of my nearest wells to my linear distances, horizontal and vertical distances. And it should be noted that I can also distinguish between true distance as well as line of section distance here within my nearest well dialog. If I come back over to the map, we now have the ability to visualize complex well paths, including U-turn wells, here within our block diagrams. So I'm going to go ahead and add that well onto the block diagram section. And you can see both intersections of that singular well are picked up by the block diagram. And they can be visualized here in the block diagram here, as well as here. Now I can also add more detail into my block diagram by utilizing trend highlighting. I can thereby come in and call on different zone manager zones or well-based production streams in order to add more information into my block diagram. So for now, I'm going to go into my producing interval and add in some cum oil data in order to see the distribution of that cum oil along with the well distances and intersecting surfaces. I give myself a good distribution of about 5. And I have the same capabilities here that I have with over in bubble mapping in GeoAtlas. I can actually come in and ramp between my desired values, can ramp between my desired colors as well. And I can pick a select size where I can really see how that distribution is interacting with my display. So I go ahead and press OK. I can see now that I have my different cum oils, high being shown by yellow versus my smaller cum oils shown by green. So again, that's adding more details into my block diagram. But what about geologic context? If I wanted to add some more geologic context, now I can come back and I can actually project nearby vertical wells onto my block diagram as type logs. When I go here, I'm going to say project my well onto any of my open block diagrams. And now I have this as a full well entity here in this block diagram section, meaning I can come back and utilize any of my petrophysical templates in order to gain more geologic knowledge here within my cross section. Now in GeoPlus, we've also added some more feature functionality, some more updates into the feature functionalities, including improved cross-section editing. So now I'm going to come over and open up a cross-section so we can see some of the enhancements we've made over there. So here's a cross-section that I have with showing different vectors and raster logs in this joint section. Now, one of the biggest feature enhancements we've done is the ability, go ahead and zoom in over here. One of the biggest features we've done is the ability to have unlimited undos and redos across all different picking modes. Whereas before that was limited exclusively to the quick pick mode, where it would not save your wells to database, thereby giving you the ability to run through and pick different trial points. But now I can come in and turn on my picker mode, and now I have the ability to run different cross lines and inlines. Different picks on my formations, while I can mitigate quick mistakes as well as make different trial points. So here I can turn on one of my pickers that I've been going through and come through and complete my formation picking. And again, you'll notice here is my toolbar allowing me to do quick undos, redos, as well as I can completely delete my picks as well as I make them. I come here and I want to completely delete that last pick, and I can undo and redo that. Now the best feature of these undos and redos is they're formation specific. So as I'm going through and picking on my first green formation here, I can actually switch to another formation, make that my active one, and continue picking on that formation. Now, while I have my undos and redos for that formation, as soon as I switch back to the original formation, those undos are stored for me. So I continue picking and updating those picks. Another feature we have here is those distance annotation tool that was available in block diagrams, also available across all of my cross sections as well. You can actually come in here, I'm going to zoom into this area here, and I can actually draw on more annotations to delineate more information here within my cross sections. So again, the full capabilities, I can add those distances, full customization capabilities, as well as breaking those components down into horizontal and vertical distances in order to show greater geometric detail in my different areas. If I scroll down here to the bottom of my well, we also have enhanced the ability to visualize more well data here directly within cross-section. Now I can do this visually. Now I have the ability to quickly glance at my well and see my well symbol in my footer, telling me what my well status is by symbol. But also I can come here into my panel, and now I have the ability to see all vector data within there. So I can see the differences between my different curve sets and what curves are in there, thereby allowing me to pick different petrophysical templates without ever having to leave my X section environment. I'm going to come back out here. For those of you who work with raster logs and work with MJ logs, we actually have the ability to directly download within X section without having to leave out of here. You can come in and visualize your curve inventory as well as all the available logs for that raster log and directly import without ever having to leave X section to continue your workflow. On top of what you've seen, on top of what I've already shown, we also have significant performance improvements, including faster cross-section opening and faster drawing of the deviated wells. Now I'm going to come over in the GVERSE Petrophysics so you can see how we've enhanced and simplified the handling of our well log curve data, as well as generating petrophysical data. Starting over in the import area, I'm going to come into my LAS import. You'll start to notice different curve options in this area here. Now this is going to aid in conflict resolution as well as standardization. So starting with conflict resolution, I now have the new ability to enable curve mapping as well as combine repeated curve sets into singular LAS files to avoid any kind of conflicts or duplicate curve names. I can also add unit standardization to my project by mapping and converting any of my desired units directly on import. If I come through, I'm going to load in an LAS file, and we'll see in the more options I have in the next screen. Now I have the ability to import curves directly into my field data curve set. And from in there, more conflict resolution, I now have two new options to merge those curves with existing curves, with two options to either replace with new values, or I can retain and prefer my existing values. If I come out of here, one of the other import enhancements we've made is now with the ASCII import, we now have the ability to accept CSV text and other ASCII formats. Keeping with the import-export process over in exports, I'm going to come back export curves. Now you'll notice in the interface for export curves, we now have the ability to export MD, TVD, TVD, SS, and XY as individual curves. As well as for repetitive curve exports, now we have the ability to load and save templates for your most used settings. Now, on top of the import, export, and data management, we also enhance the user interface and capabilities of curve data statistics, as well as saving items over into Zone Manager. So here in our curve data statistics interface, you'll notice once you start to add curves, the difference is now instead of adding singular curves, I can bulk add curves all at once. So I'm going to go through and add a selection of my different curves, phi D, and we'll end with row B. So if I want them all to be an average, I can push them all over as once without ever having to leave my dialog. Then I can continue iterating through any other data statistics that I would like to do. For example, I can come here and say I want a curve cutoff above 75 GAPI. I can change what my attribute title is going to be and add that in. Now, once I'm done selecting all my curves, I can come in and start calculating statistics. In a situation where I notice I did not put my selected zone, for example, I don't have to go through and individually select those zones. I actually now have the capability to bulk update my different zone items, and it'll take effect across all of my selected statistics. I'm going to set that to my wells with curves and go ahead and create that data. Now, the other change we've made is in the ability to save to Zone Manager. Whereas before you'd have to save things individually, now you can come through and work inside of one interface. Now I can and I can actually bulk mode and say I want to save everything here to my producing interval. And now I can go through and choose my individual attributes, thereby saving me clicks and time. So in a situation where I have an existing attribute, I can come through my drop down, or I can select the attribute by coming through and using a search. So now I can mitigate that. If I have lots of different attributes, I can come through and search and pick that attribute. Or if I don't have an attribute created, I can quickly create a new attribute from directly within this interface. For example, we'll say that's LLB, average. Now, if I wanted to generate those statistics but didn't need to save all of them to Zone Manager, I also have the ability to select which attributes and statistics I'm going to save into my Zone Manager zones, and then I can save that over. Now, the other enhancement we've made to save processing and time is now we've added the ability to create all of these attributes in bulk format into maps. So now I can actually select which ones I want, which parameters I want, and send them directly over utilizing common display or grid templates. Then I can generate my maps directly from in here, and they can be utilized inside of GeoPlus, GeoAtlas, or GVERSE Geophysics. Now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and talk about the enhancements we've made over in GVERSE Geophysics. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this project and come into a project that I have data in 2D and 3D geophysical data. So we'll go ahead and activate this new project and open up GVERSE Geophysics. While that's open, I'm going to explain to you. Now, the enhancements we made over here in GVERSE Geophysics are on the fly seismic attribute functionality. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with our on the fly seismic attributes, it's our real-time module allowing you to compute and contrast seismic attributes on the fly, and in real time, without ever needing to export external volumes, and generate in order to compare and contrast. So now I have the ability, and to display that for you, now I have the ability to come through and I can add some 3D seismic data to my screen. And now I can call on different inlines and cross lines here in 3D and actually perform my attributes directly in 3D view. No longer am I restricted to the multi-panel view. Now I can come in and add attributes, simple attributes like frequency tunes and semblance. Can also add in inlines and cross lines and do multiple calculations, including spectral decomposition, and including complex calculations like spectral decomposition, all done on the fly. And again, this can be done in 3D as well as in multi-view windows in order to compare and contrast my different areas amongst different comparison panels. Now I can come through and add different attributes in here. So the new enhancements that we've made here are now pertaining to 2D data. So now I have the ability to actually come in and I can say I want to come in and add in a new multi-panel view, and now I can distinguish between my 2D and 3D data. Now I can come in, pull in, I'll select my specific dip lines my specific 2D lines that I would like to utilize and open them up in a new window. Now this is the same workflow as in with 3D attributes, keeping it very simple and the learning curve very small. So I can come through, right click, and I can choose different attributes to visualize, compare, and contrast here utilizing my 2D data. So I can come through, I can iterate through my different parameters without ever having to generate external volumes. Again, in multi-view, I have no restriction on how many panels I want to utilize in order to visualize my 2D data. I can come in, I can do structural oriented filter, as well as complex computations like spectral decomposition. Again, I have full co-blending capabilities as well for my 2D data, just as I did with my 3D data as well. From there, I can actually take that and visualize that in 3D. I'm not restricted to only my 2D view I'm not only restricted to multi-panels. I can view my 2D lines over in 3D view as well and run different attributes here in 3D. Just by right click coming over, and I can say I would like to view enhanced coherence here. Step through and change my parameters. Now I also have the ability here in multi-view to now change my trace scaling. I can change my trace scaling of my 2D data in order to get a better fit, expressing vertical exaggeration across my time and traces, as well as completely flip my traces here of my 2D data. Now I also can come in and perform inversion on my 2D data. So come in here, I can come in and create, let me go ahead and collapse down my panels in order to go to a 2-view panel. Now I can come here, and the same way I would create my inversion on 3D data, I can do the same for my 2D data. Again, I can go ahead and select 2D data, pick which lines I would like to do. I'm going to stick on my first line here and go ahead and load those traces. Again, that's going to go through and create an amplitude spectrum based off my seismic data, which I can then smooth out, represented by that blue line. From there, I can come in and select different wells in my area in order to calculate acoustic impedance, in order to calculate a seismic spectrum. From there, inverse Fourier is run to create my operator in time. I do have different well fit parameters that I can adjust to get a better fit of my operator, as well as high cut, pass cut options in order to get a more realistic operator in time. Once I save that out, now I can actually utilize that as a attribute here within my multi-view screens on my 2D data. Now I also have the ability to produce low frequency models in order to convert that from, in order to calculate absolute impedance from that. And lastly, I have full export capabilities of my 2D data. I can export all of my volumes of my attribute once I'm done with my analysis, only once at the end, saving me processing time, as well as spectral decomposition of my 2D data. Now, to recap the new features and functionalities that were shown today for version 2026.1 Vega, we started by looking at the enhanced visual details added into our block diagrams, which included distance annotations as well as adding geologic context directly into the section itself. We then looked at the improvements made into the speed and efficiency of editing our cross sections with the undos and redo functionalities across all pick modes, as well as adding more well data directly onto the section itself. Then we went over in the GVERSE petrophysics, where we saw the improvements we've made in handling well log curves as well as petrophysical data, and the new user interface for curve data statistics, as well as saving items to Zone Manager. And lastly, we went over in the GVERSE Geophysics to see the enhancements we've made to the on-the-fly seismic attributes. Now we have the ability to run seismic attributes and inversion on 2D data. Now, if you have any questions on what you've seen here today, feel free to submit them here and I'd be happy to answer them. But for now, thank you for attending today's webinar.